Hello, fellow entrepreneurs. This is Joe with the Small Business Store. I'm coming to you today with some information. You can take it with a grain of salt or you can take it to heart. That is up to you. Before we get started, I'm going to give myself a free plug. I run and own the Small Business Store now for 15, 16 years. If you have a need for any type of print materials like signs, business cards, store hangers, postcards, flags, magnets, window signs, clothing and apparel, or if you need some graphics for online advertising on Facebook or Instagram, you can always log into our website and click on the item you're interested in and place an order directly. We always provide a proof before going to print, and we give you unlimited revisions. Many of our signage products have free design. Okay, today I wanted to go over expectations for results when it comes to advertising, specifically mailings, and within that, every door direct mail. I read a post yesterday that I commented on in a group where a gentleman had said that he was going to be mailing out some mailers and he wanted to get everybody's take on what kind of results he should be able to expect. Teradel, I've heard of them before. I think they're in Virginia. Very, very, very big bulk printer for magazines. Let's see. Boy, isn't this funny? Here, I think we need to go to the post office website, USPS.com, to actually be able to access the Every Door Direct Mail tools. You ever notice how hard sometimes it is to talk and think and do things like this at the same time? So let's see here. Click and ship. Calculate a rate. Boy, you'd think they would have a little bit Every Door Direct Mail. I think they'd have a little bigger button or something on their website directing people to Every Door Direct Mail. There we go. Okay, so I was going to say, look how easy it is to go to the post office website and get to the Every Door Direct Mail tool. Okay, so I mean, obviously, you watched what I did. I had to use the search tool. Mail your tax return, form small business services. Now, tell you what, probably the easiest way, go to USPS.com, type in Every Door Direct Mail, and then click the link for Every Door Direct Mail. And this is what you want to look for, is the EDDM online tool. Okay. This is just a real quick primer for those of you who aren't familiar with how this works. Basically, Every Door Direct Mail is not the same as standard direct mail. This allows you to take a stack of mailers to the post office, drop them off, and basically say, I want these delivered to every address on the carrier's route. It's not exactly like that, but that's the gist of it. So let's say, okay, use my zip code 43528, western suburbs of Toledo. What it'll do is it'll bring up a map and it'll also give you the ability to look at a list. Okay, so if you, here you see the map, and this shows you the zip code. You can zoom in. For example, like I know right in this area here, this is a place called Stone Oak. It's very ritzy, $500,000 houses around a golf course. And then you can kind of zoom in and you can you drag? Yeah, okay. So you can drag the map That's not where I'm looking. Where? Do. Okay. This is it right here. Nope, that's Hidden Lakes. Boy, why do I not know? Why do I not know my own area? Anyway, let's take this area right here. These are also fairly decent priced houses. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm sorry. Stone Oak Country Club. All right. So you can hover over and you see when you touch, it shows you all these purple lines comprise a subzone or a carrier route within a zip code. So if I just wanted to say I was doing Christmas light installation, and that's something that people with big houses and lots of disposable income use, this is where I would go. I would want to hit houses that are like 300,000 plus. So I could select just this area, and you see what this does here is it tells me 608 addresses are available in this area, and it'll cost me $116 in postage to be able to mail to this area. And if I hit continue, it basically just has me check out, and I pay for the postage now. Okay, before I even have the mailers. What you can also do is, let's say that you're mailing in areas a little further outside of your home or where you know. This table will show you the different carrier routes that make up that zip code. In my zip code, there's 11 routes. And it breaks it down and gives you columns to show you how many residential, how many business addresses there are, and how many total. This is something new they've added, which is an age range of 25 to 44. And I'll show you a percentage. How many people live in each residence, and then income. So you notice I clicked on the one with Stone Oak. The homes are, like I said, 300,000 plus. That's also the area with the largest average income. So this is a really good tool to allow you to see basically how many residences, businesses. Now, one of the things I don't like that they've taken off is they used to be able to, or they used to show you a breakdown of rental. So, for example, if you're doing any kind of home service, whether it be seal coating, lawn care, uh, house washing, Christmas lights, junk removal, it would be beneficial to be able to see rentals, correct? But we can pretty much assume that in this zip code or in this carrier route of the zip code, there's no rentals. These are high-end properties around a country club. So that's basically how you would go through and you would set up the postage side of doing an every door direct mail campaign. Um, and then here's an example of a mailer that I designed for a asphalt paving and seal coating company. Let's see here. Clear guides. Let me just take that off. Okay. So this is the minimum size that you can use is a 6.5 by 8. Or you can use a 4.5 by 11. So that's kind of like if you took a sheet of paper and you folded it in half vertically. And then here's the back, and you can see with the Every Door Direct Mail, all you need to do is leave a space available here for the postage indicia and a spot here for the address indicia. And I can show those to you real quick. Basically, all it is with when you're talking about standard mail, you usually have to have a mailing list. But with Every Door Direct Mail, you just use these. Okay, this is your stamp. It's standard and it gets printed on every postcard. The to address is this right here. It just says postal customer, local postal customer. You don't need to have an address. So that was one of the benefits of having Every Door Direct Mail. So here's the mailer, and that's something that, you could go through a company like me or somebody else to have designed and printed for you. And then here is where you purchase your postage. Once you go through this whole process, they also have you print out some forms where you basically just write down what zip code and what carrier route um, you're sending these to. They make you group them into packs of 100. You rubber band them with the form, and then you just take them to your post office and drop them off because the postage has already been paid. Okay, so that's what we're talking about when we're talking about every door direct mail. Okay, so getting back to response rates, I'm just curious to see what. Here's people ask, what is the average response rate for a direct mail campaign? According to the Direct Marketing Association, the average response rate for direct mail house lists is 9% and 5% for prospect lists. However, if your direct mail piece is advertising an expensive or complicated product, a response rate that is less than 1% is not unusual. Is it funny how they go from 9 and 5% down to less than 1? Well, I'm here to tell you that everyone is going to get less than 1. Okay, it's just, I mean, you have to look at who's putting out this data, the Direct Marketing Association. So they obviously have a vested interest in cooking the numbers, telling people that, oh, you're going to get this tremendous response. Let's see what other sources give us. Direct mail has a median return of investment of 29%. Now that's not response rate. That's dollars. So that's not what we're looking for. And that we could revisit later. I think that's more in line. That might even be low. I like how the questions change as you click on them. What is response rate in direct marketing? 100 responses divided by 5,000 pieces mailed equals 2 response. Okay, yeah, that's calculating, but that's not giving us actual statistics. Okay, so, well, they don't really seem to have a very good answer here immediately on Google, so I'll give you what the answer is. The answer is, like I said, it's going to be less than 1%. It's going to be a good response is going to be around 0.1%. In the post that the gentleman had made that I read yesterday, and I honestly I can't recall what industry he was in, but he had a couple people respond, and one of the respondents was someone who does what I do, which is design, printing, mailing. But I think they were like strictly 100% like a mailing house. So they had a vested interest in making it sound sweeter than it was. And they said between 1 to 3%. And I called them out on it. I wasn't rude about it. I responded. And this is basically what I said. I said, I'm surprised to see you post that someone can expect a 1 to 3% response rate on something that's mailed. Um, because I worked for the largest direct mail magazine in Ohio, and we mailed over 10 million copies of what's called marriage mail. If you're familiar with Valpak or things that come in the mail, which are like a magazine or an envelope, anything that's got a group of businesses together, that's called marriage mail because you're marrying together many businesses into one booklet or envelope. And the response rate that we saw was on the high end about 0.1%. And I was there for about 2 years. I worked in the Detroit market because we had expanded where we mailed 1.1 million pieces just around the Detroit market. And I specifically recall a roofing company, Tuttle Roof, that was a client of mine, and they bought all 1.1 million addresses to be mailed around the Detroit area. If you're in the Detroit area, it extended all the way. I wasn't really familiar with North Detroit, like Warren, well, north of Warren, but like Clinton Township, downriver, everything to the state line, over to like Bloomfield Hills, etc. So, I mean, it was a big area. And it was a magazine, roughly about, I'd say, 7 by 9 or 7 by 10 in size. So it was a decent sized magazine. And he got 4 calls out of 1.1 million mailings. Okay. Um, Obviously, it didn't help that inside that magazine there were 5 other roofing companies. So that plays a part. But as a general rule, typically, um, marriage mail, well, I guess, it depends on the business, but marriage mail results and mailing your own piece, it depends on your business on which one will give you a better result. Okay. But I basically called out this company and said, there's no way it's 1 to 3%. And I just said, for instance, let's take someone who mailed out 10,000 postcards, which isn't unusual, or even let's just make it 5,000, which is pretty common. 1% of 5,000 postcards is 50. And I'm telling you that a company that does seal coating or a company that does lawn care that mails out 5,000 postcards is not going to get 50 calls. Okay. Um, they might get 10. Okay. Um, 5 is more realistic. Sometimes it's 0. Uh, and I'm not saying this just to discourage people, because I would not sell these services and these products if I didn't believe in them. I know they work, but you say, how does it work if I'm getting 0? Well, I'll get to that in a little bit. Okay, let's continue going over response rate. Now, I know there might be some of you watching say, oh, I've gotten 2%, I've gotten 1%. Good for you. That's fantastic. It's just not average. It's not the norm. Okay. Let me put it to like this, because this is another comment that I left on the gentleman's post, and I I would go to Facebook and I would bring up the conversation and then the response that I had with that other company, but after I responded to them, they deleted their post. So I think they recognized that they had been successfully called out, and they didn't even believe their own myth of 1 to 3%. But let's put it like this, okay? Let's say the advice that I gave the gentleman is it's pointless to ask other people what kind of response rate they're getting in their mailings, and here's why. Let's take 2 identical companies in the same industry. Let's say they're in the exact same market. Let's say that they both offer the exact same services and they both have really professional looking mailers like this. Okay? Everything's the same. But let's say that one company does not have this. 15% off your asphalt, paving, or install. Okay? Let's say that that is just not there, and that is just blank. And then let's say that the other company does have that. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think both companies are going to be able to say, yeah, we average both 0.1% or 0.5% or 1%? Of course not. The company that has the discount is going to get a higher response rate. So even if you make things identical, coming down to this one variable is going to change the response rate. So just imagine things like people being in different industries, people being in different geographic areas, people sending to different demographics, people having different styles of design or presentation, having different messages, maybe even some companies having a poor reputation in their area and they don't realize it, and then they send out a mailer, versus a company that maybe has a very good reputation sending out a mailer, maybe a company that's been around for 20 years and everyone already knows, versus a brand new company or a company that doesn't have a good reputation. And then the variable of having an offer, the messaging, look at this mailer right here. It says asphalt, paving and overlays. Okay, you cannot miss what this company does. So if you're in the market for this and you want a discount, this is going to get a different result from a company that doesn't really over the top announce what it is they're selling. There are so many factors that it's, like I said, it's virtually useless to go to any other company and say, how did you do when you did your mailing? You got to look at variables of maybe one company has been doing mailings constantly for 2 years. That's going to give them a leg up versus a company that this is their first mailing. There are so many factors that the only way to know is to do it yourself. Okay. Now, one of the things that you have to understand, a lot of business owners just, and it's not their fault, it's just I'm in marketing, I think about these things. But we have a tendency to think that just because we mailed out a flyer that people are going to respond, that people are in the market, they want to buy. That's true for a percentage of people. But the tendency is people buy when they're ready. When I had a storefront, I actually had a customer that brought in a flyer that was 2 years old. They held it for 2 years. Okay. Now, 2 years before that, I might have said, wow, I got nothing from putting out that flyer. Well, the truth is, I did. I just had to wait 2 years to get it. But you understand what I'm saying is that people buy when they're ready, not when we want them to buy. Now, you can encourage people to buy by advertising. Maybe you're reminding them, hey, that's right, I have to have that done this year. Or, hey, I never thought of this. Maybe, take, for example, an industry like junk hauling, which is really popular right now. Maybe people have had a pile of junk sitting behind their shed for years, and they've just never realized that that service was available in their area. So by you doing a mailing, they've been in the market to buy for years. They just didn't realize it until they got your mailing. Or maybe you can encourage them by moving a little faster by giving them an incentive, right? So, but we have to realize that people are going to buy when they're ready. I put out ads all the time, and in the last month, I've been running a lot of ads about not paying a ton of money to get your vehicle wrapped. Instead, we can do decals that you can put on yourself. It's a lot cheaper. And there's a lot of power washing companies that have enclosed trailers, lawn care companies with enclosed trailers. There's a lot of junk removal companies that have dumpsters and dump trailers where they're like, heck yeah, I'll spend $300-400 on decals instead of, $2,000-3,000 on a wrap. So I put the product out and I got a tremendous response. And a lot of the people that I spoke with online, I was like, okay, well, here's our process. Let me know when you want to order. And many of them were like, okay, I'll get back to you. They made the initial contact because they had the interest, but it wasn't time for them yet. Okay. So we have to realize that just because we advertise, it doesn't mean that that's when people are ready to buy. We can't judge our failure or success on a mailing by how many responses we get within like 3 weeks. Okay. You really need to do it over a period of 6 to 9 months and get a running average of what kind of response you get. Because you can put out a mailer this week and not get a response for 2 months, but it was effective and it was successful. Okay. You have to make sure that you're there when people do make that decision to buy. All right. So just like people contacted me through Facebook about the decals, people may hold on to your postcard thinking, oh, this is something I want. And they're not going to buy for 2 months. But you don't know that they're holding your postcard. You just assume, oh, it failed because you didn't get a call or you didn't make a sale. Okay. I think we're living in a time where it's like with the internet and everything being so fast, people want instant gratification. And they think that if I advertise, I need to have an immediate result next week and it has to be 10 times what I spent. And although that occasionally happens for some industries, like pizza places, it's not going to be the case for the great majority of people. It has to be a long-term process where you have a plan, you know what you want to spend, and you have to sit back and wait to see what kind of results you get from people once they're ready to buy from you. Now, going back to these numbers that people put out, one of the things you have to also understand is that These are generic results for all industries, and it includes restaurants. It includes things like dry cleaning services. It includes very low cost um, services that people can just say, yeah, why not? I'll get a pizza tonight. It's not the same as making a decision of, oh, well, I never thought about having a company do my lawn care and signing a 1 year contract that's going to cost me, who knows, like $5,000. See, something that's going to take a little more thought, and people are going to take a little bit more time to make that decision. It's not the same as ordering from Pizza Hut or getting, a postcard in the mail from Chick-fil-A. All right, that's something easy to act on. So if you ever go online and you're like, what's the response rate? You have to understand that they're mixing in the numbers for all industries. This person or this company says direct mail is not dead. People may feel that direct mail or direct marketing could disappear in a digital world, but in reality, this is not the case. There are many why am I having such a hard time reading and talking today? There are many reasons why direct mail works even in 2020. Direct marketing is interactive and personal. I wouldn't go so far as to say personal. I just look. I don't want to talk anything up and say, oh, this is why. Look, here's the reality. Not everybody is online. For those of you that are in your 20s up through your early 30s, that might be hard to believe, but I have an entire family that is between the age of 40 and 60 that they're really not online. I think my mom has a Facebook account. She has like 15 friends. So, and then my sister's 50 and she's not even on Facebook. And neither is her husband. They have 4 kids, and I don't think they even have smartphones. So, the reality is that whatever their percentage is, there are people that are not on social media. There are people that, even if they are on social media, they're not there all the time. And you do need to have alternative means to reach them, whether it be mailing or whether it be yard signs, whatever. But direct mail definitely has a role to play in anybody's marketing effort. It's just a matter of funds, okay? Because I always say, if you're going to do something, do it right. So if you really don't have the money, then direct mail, every door direct mail, maybe that's not the first thing that you want to tackle. Okay, that's maybe more for when you have $400 or $500 a month that you can put just towards that. Okay, because you really do need to run continuous campaigns to be able to have any idea of what kind of response rate you're going to get. So I hope this was helpful. Um, like I said, you really need to try it yourself. There's not a number. There is in general, okay? Obviously, nobody's going to say that you get a 50% response rate. But the numbers are just so ballpark, and they're based on so many variables that you really have to try it for yourself. And I would suggest this: get a professional to help you with the design, get a professional to help you with your message, because just like you understand your industry, you understand the idiosyncrasies. If you're in power washing and soft washing, you recognize that you have to have different pH levels. There's different chemicals you can use. When you have different kinds of stains on houses or roofs, you have to use different chemicals. If you're in, even if you're in junk hauling, that's something where people say, well, how hard is it to get a pickup truck and just go grab, a pile of junk from somebody? Well, you need to know a rough idea of how much things are going to weigh, how much dump rates are, what kind of materials you can and can't take. I mean, there's idiosyncrasies and specific things in every industry that people need to know, and that there's no difference with marketing and design. There are things I know that you don't. And that's not me being holier than thou. It's just a fact, because I've been doing it for 15 years and I've been in sales for 20. There's things that professionals who are in marketing and design will be able to help you with that will give you a leg up in giving your mailer a better chance of succeeding than if you do it yourself. If you go on a website like Vistaprint and you design something yourself, you are not getting professional advice. You're spending money on something that is not giving you your best chance. If you go on a website like Fiverr, where you're paying Pakistani, or even if you pick, people based out of the United States to do your design, you're asking them to do a design. You're not asking them to do your marketing messaging for you. Okay. Um, they're not going to be able to give you your best foot forward in getting the best results you can. Quick story just about marketing in general. When I started uh, my business, I was self-taught in design. I started putting out signs saying that you could buy 1,000 business cards from me for $39, okay, or 1,000 postcards for like $99, like the little 4x6. They didn't sell, okay. So I'm in marketing, and I failed at that first attempt. So even your first attempt, most of the time, isn't going to be what succeeds. You're going to have to tweak things to find what works. So with me, what I did is I started getting phone calls from people, and they weren't asking about the postcards or the business cards. They were asking, where'd you get the signs made? Okay. So for my business, the tweak that I made is, well, I'm going to stop advertising the business cards and postcards. I'm going to start advertising signs. And then when people call about signs, I'll let them know I do business cards, postcards, and all these other things. Okay. So I eventually found my silver bullet. And it only came because I went through trial and error. But it was also because I had the knowledge on how to do that. And I had the knowledge on how to write good copy and put together good designs that would give me an advantage in my marketing. So, if you try to do it yourself, if you go on Fiverr, if you go on Vistaprint, you are shortchanging yourself. And essentially what you're doing is, let's say you're going to spend $200 in printing, and then you're going to spend $150 in mailing. You're you're taking $350, okay? And you're banking the success of it all on wanting to be cheap by not having to pay for design by going on Vistaprint, or by only having to pay $15 by going on Fiverr. So you see what I'm saying is, like, you're taking this huge risk with $350 because on the most important aspect, the design and the messaging, you're going cheap. Okay, so it's like you're you're in a casino with $350 in your pocket, and you're going and you're finding the most difficult game to win at, basically, when you go to Fiverr or you go to Vistaprint. And that's not me trying to say, hey, buy from me, and that's not me trying to trash competition, because I don't they're not my competition, because they don't do and they don't know what I know. And there's a lot of companies out there like me that you could use as an alternative if you don't want to buy from me. But all I'm saying is the success rate of your mailing is going to pivot on not the fact that you're mailing, not the fact that you're having postcards printed. It's going to be based on what your design looks like and what it says. So if you're willing to spend $350 for the postage and the printing, why are you looking for freebies and doing things cheap on the most important part? Okay. So I would just kind of warn against going with Fiverr or Vista. And I'm sure there's a lot of great designers on Fiverr, but design is not messaging. Someone can put together a really nice design for you that doesn't say anything. Because if let's say you're in lawn care, let's say you're in any other industry, you have competitors in your area that are probably doing mailings and advertising just like you. And they're listing their phone number, their business name, their logo, and their list of services too, just like you. But what differentiates you? That's what you're going to get from working with someone who does marketing, as opposed to going on Fiverr where you're just getting a design. They're going to build a design based on the information you tell them. And if you don't understand marketing, and even if you think you do, you still don't have maybe the 15 years experience that a lot of other people do. that can challenge you in finding a better marketing message. So as far as getting a 1% rate in direct mail, yeah, it happens. You know, I would challenge, even though that, like, in my local area, when I get coupons, and I call them coupon mailers, when I get a handful of stuff in the mail that's postcards and mailers, pizza places, I would challenge you, um, don't even get 1%. Okay? Excuse me. And how do I know that? Well, because I was in the industry. You know, I placed ads for Papa Romano's Pizza up in the Detroit market. I placed ads for Quiznos up in the Detroit market, for Ramshorn restaurants, all kinds. We ran ads for. I sold to all kinds of restaurants to run ads uh, in that magazine, and I can tell you, even restaurants didn't hit 1%. Okay, um, it's but rather than focusing on the percent, you should focus on the quality of the responses you do get. Let me ask you this. If you mailed out 30,000 postcards, do you think that you could even handle 300 phone calls in a week or two? Because that's what 1% would be. Okay. So that kind of puts in perspective for you what 1% really is. All right. Once again, like if you do 5,000, that would be 50 calls. I would say 50 calls would even be tough to handle in a week, because you're talking about 10 calls a day. And every phone call is going to be between 5 to 25 minutes. And unless you have you have dedicated phone support, you can't even handle 1%. All right. 0.1% would be 5 calls on 5,000. And let's say that you're doing junk calling. Well, 5 calls, if you can close 3 of them, might range anywhere from $800 in revenue to, I don't know, $2,500 in revenue, depending on the job. And all you invested was probably around $450. So 0.1% would be good, right? Because that's a good return on investment. So I wouldn't get hung up so much on percentages as I would actual quantity of responses. Because look, if let's say I'm selling something where I have a 90% profit margin and it's expensive. Let's take Christmas light installations. Okay. Or even pressure washing, because a lot of that's very high margin. I don't need 1%. I don't need 0.1% to be profitable, to make it worth my while. Okay. If I mail out 5,000 mailers and it costs me $450 and I can make $500 on one job, one response is profitable. Now you might say, well, it's not worth it to only make $50, but it's a process, because that customer then becomes a repeat customer. They become word of mouth. You see how it's organic growth. So pay more attention to the actual number of responses you get as opposed to worrying about a percent. Okay. But you have to try it in order to see what you get. And even when you start seeing what you get, if you're disappointed with it, you can't give up on it. You have to try and tweak your message to see if there's a better way or a better angle to use to sell people. The other thing that you should think about is that when you look at response rates for any kind of, and this is true for any kind of advertising, but let's stick with direct mail. Business owners have a tendency, let's say even after 3 months, they say, well, that didn't work for me. Well, are they blaming the format, like direct mail, or are they being introspective and looking at their design, their messaging, their offer, the way they basically ran the campaign? Many times people just want to blame the format, like direct mail or Facebook or whatever, instead of blaming themselves. and saying, man, I can understand why I didn't do good in this direct mail campaign because my design looks like crap. It doesn't attract anybody, and I don't really have a good message there. Well, a lot of times that's the reason why you don't do well. It has nothing to do with how effective mailing a postcard is. People got your postcard. It's just maybe you had crap for design and crap for a message. So it wasn't effective. So when you go back and you look at your response rate, you can't just immediately look at the response rate and say, wow, I've done this 3 months in a row and I haven't gotten a single call. That still doesn't mean that direct mail doesn't work, because obviously we know it does, because there's other people saying, hey, I get all this response. That's when you need to look at yourself. Just like when I was talking about, I was putting out signs saying that I sell business cards and postcards. Okay. I didn't look at it and say, man, yard signs for advertising don't work. No. I realized from the type of calls that I was getting that, yeah, yard signs do work, because I'm getting calls, but they want to know where I got my yard signs. Now, I was fortunate in that respect because I did get people calling to let me know they saw my sign. Okay. You're not necessarily going to get that with a postcard if people don't respond. They're not going to respond and say, hey, I got your postcard, but man, it just didn't really click with me. Nobody's going to call and say that you had a crappy message. All right. You're going to have to be patient and put that down as a possibility. If you don't get the type of response that you want, you're going to have to look at yourself and say, is it a possibility that there's a problem with my offer, with my business, with my design, with my message? Okay. Is there a problem with who I'm mailing to? All right. So there's a lot of variables, and that's why you can't just do it once and make a judgment. If you're in a position where you're going to do it once and make a judgment, then you probably don't have the funds to be doing it. So stay away from it. Do something that's less expensive. But if you're going to do direct mail, it's easy for people like me who sell it, because ha ha ha, he's bankrolling on me wasting money for 9 months. Yeah, I get an income from it, but I sell so many other products that I'm not particularly interested in conning people into just using this or talking them into using that. So when I do say that you need to take a patient approach and give yourself, think in advance of a budget of maybe $3,000 over a period of 6 months that you're going to spend, and put $500 a month into it, and give it an opportunity to feed you back results that you can react to and respond to and try and improve. So say you're going to do 6 months. Say you're going to mail out twice a month and do $250 worth each time. You go 1 month and your results are 0. So you hold fast because you realize that, well, maybe there's people holding on to the card. Maybe it worked. I just don't know because they're not ready to buy. So you go through a second month and you're still getting 0. Now it's getting to the point where it's a little harder to be positive and say, well, people are just holding on to it. That still is probably the case, but after 2 months, if you're not getting anything, there's a need to make a change. So then what you want to do is you want to go back and you want to change your message, and maybe even change the carrier routes or the zip code that you're mailing to. So then you go through, and maybe on the third month, hey, I finally got a couple calls. Look, it worked. I changed my strategy. I changed my message, and it's paying off. It's not giving me the amount I'd like, but now I'm at least getting something. Okay. So now it may just be a factor of you found a winning message. Now you just have to stick with it for a while. Or you can look at it and say, I did make a minor change and I got a few more results. I'm going to make a few more minor changes and see what that does. Okay. At minimum, you really need 4 to 6 months to get any kind of sense if your campaign is working or not. Ideally, you want to go about 9 months. That's going to give you a clear-cut answer if direct mail is going to... Well, something's up with my dog. But 9 months is going to give you a clear-cut idea of if direct mail is going to work for your business. Because remember, all businesses are different. If I own a restaurant or a pizza place or dry cleaning, or I don't know, think of something that's inexpensive that everybody uses. Of course, I'm going to get a good rate. But if you're advertising something that's a little more expensive, or okay, I'm going to have to check on him real soon. So I'm going to have to end this soon. But um, if you're selling something that's more expensive and is a little less common or fewer people use it because it requires someone who lives in, an expensive residence, then of course you're going to have less results. So hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, you can always feel free to give me a call. The number is 567-970-5029. You can email, you can respond below, and I will try to help as much as I can. Look, I own a small business. My wife owns a small business. My father owns a small business. I'm a small business guy. This is how I make my living, but I also offer tons of free advice like this. So hopefully you watched the whole video. Hopefully it was useful. Like I said, take it with a grain of salt. Maybe you're getting a better result than I indicated people get. But I think for the most part, for most people, this is really the type of expectations you should have, so that you're not out there thinking that you're gonna strike it rich when you do direct mail. Okay, well, that's the end of this video, and I think when I click that X, I really don't know. Let me see what happens. It flips. Okay. All right. Thanks for watching. If you need anything, feel free to visit $5signs.com and have a great business day. Take care. Let's see if we can get this closed. Finally.